Institute of Directors of Nigeria, a leading policy advocacy group in the country, hosted a special roundtable on infrastructure in Lagos. It was an opportunity for key stakeholders from the public and private sector space to engage on the topic, filling the infrastructure gap in the country. President of the Institute, Alhaji Ahmed Rufai Mohammed, laid out why infrastructure was the focus of the discourse for the IOD Nigeria Roundtable.
Infrastructure, by its definition, means so many things. This could include a combination of good and motorable roads, a railway network, the provision of pipe-borne water, hospitals and schools, waste generation of electric power, and its distribution, among many others. Many suggestions have been made on how to create the needed resource for the capital investment in this sector, and the expected turnaround of the economy through the creation of a business-friendly environment capable of attracting the best investment into the country. Finally, I would like to express our hope that the outcome of this forum will unravel a lot of salient issues that will not only entrust and assist the government in its quest to strategically address the infrastructure deficiency in the country, but also seek the commitment and support of our private sector and all other stakeholders to the improvement of investment in this vital sector of our economy.
Representative of the Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Dr. Femi Hanzat, gave some highlights on the interventions of the federal government in the infrastructure space so far.
In terms of the challenges of our country in terms of infrastructure, honestly, we must look at our budgeting approach. The way we budget is not the people that actually manage the infrastructure that determines the budget. And of course, if you can't measure something, you can't manage it. It's as simple as that. And that's what's happening. Now, the way we budget is we take a road, and it makes sense in this case to break this road. So for example, Kano to Maiduguri is about 600 kilometers. That's a long road. So you don't want contractor risk, you don't want to give it to a contractor, you break it into 4. Manageable, about 150 kilometers each. But the way we budget is we don't budget that road as a single component. So we break it. So what should have happened, or what we did at least in Lagos, is you budget that road and say, Kano to Maiduguri, let's say it's 10 billion naira. But what we do is we say that component A, the A part, we budget and say 5 billion. Component B, 0. Component C, 2 billion. Component D, 0. So what happens is the contractor that is doing B and C, it's a public budget, sees that, well, there's nothing for me in this budget, they just pack and go home. But what should, so now, the guy that got the component A that got the 7 billion, unfortunately might not be able to use that 7 billion in 1 year. So you have stranded resources. But what we should have done is to just budget for that road, Kano to Madu, and say 10 billion. Let the contractors now compete to get that money. Because basically what happens is, by the time you do a road, you do your vouchers, and then you are measured, and then you are paid. So it makes more progress. But that's basically some of the things that we've been trying to talk to our legislature so that we can change that approach and make sure that we're able to correct our roads. What is happening today is that there are incremental progress in power. Like I said, at least now, we are able to, the maximum that we're able to transmit now is about 7,000. So what that means is, in terms of support for investment, is the discourse that really actually has to now measure up so that we can distribute that 6,000 at least to, because then, like I said, we have the capacity to generate 12,000 megawatts, but we cannot carry, on our transmission infrastructure, we cannot carry 20. However, remember, majority, this stranded power, so for example, Proshare and the rest have, say, about 900 megawatts. But today, they can only put about 500 out there because they don't have enough gas. So that's the essence of the payment assurance guarantee, the 701, to sort of give confidence to the GENCOs and gas suppliers that, because what happens, like I said, when DISCOs cannot collect enough, they cannot pay the GENCOs, because the GENCOs don't come to us to get their money. Everybody pays through the DISCO, but the DISCOs are not collecting enough. And as such, they cannot pay enough to everybody else.
Dr. Andrew Nevin, Chief Economist, PricewaterhouseCoopers Nigeria, gave a snapshot on why Private investment was critical to scale up infrastructure in Nigeria.
In terms of how it fits into infrastructure, I mean, we've talked about these deficits. To achieve that growth rate, we need to invest about 30 trillion naira a year into the economy to achieve 6, 7, 8% growth rate. 30 trillion naira, we only have 15 trillion naira ourselves in basically available for that. So we need to attract 15 trillion naira a year. To attract 15 trillion naira a year, we have to have a fantastic business environment. Now, sometimes people, and Dr. Hamzat, speaking on behalf of the minister, made some very good points about the critical investments that the federal government is making. But the truth is that the federal government does not have enough resources to make a dent in all of this. So to put some mathematics on it, we talked about 115 trillion economy. We have 30 trillion of investment we need. Of that 30 trillion, probably 60% is infrastructure. If we take power, housing, real estate, so housing, power, and other infrastructure together. So we need about 18 trillion naira a year invested in infrastructure. The federal government is investing a little less than 3 trillion. So they've done a fantastic job compared to previous administrations, but they're only investing 1/6 of what the country needs to move forward. So when you add up all that mathematics, you realize unless we're attracting infrastructure investment from abroad, we're not going to have sufficient economic growth, we're not going to have sufficient employment growth, we're going to have increasing unemployment among our young people, and eventually that system is not sustainable.
The Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Infrastructure Bank PLC, Mr. Adekunle Abdulrazak Oyinloye, listed the way forward for improving the power infrastructure value chain in the country.
Private sector participation is coming to the fore in the Nigerian electricity market, and this is expected to continue this year and even beyond. The major problem that will have to be overcome to secure reliable power supply in Nigeria may include the aging and vandalized generation infrastructure, as well as inadequate and inefficient transmission and distribution network, which in turn will contribute to high power losses. Over-dependency on gas-fired power generation, which has resulted in supply disruption due to shortages. The government mandated domestic gas prices for generation are low, meaning that producers favor export, while low tariffs makes investment in new capacity unattractive. Non-cost reflective tariff and an inefficient billing and metering system that has put a significant strain on the revenue of the collection and the collectors. Vested interests have played a major part in slowing the reforms process. It is not my idea, but that is the inference we're drawing. Violent attacks by Boko Haram militants continue to rock the Northeast and deterring investment in power generation around that side. Addressing these challenges will be key to Nigeria's long-term plans to plug the fast power deficit by attracting private capital into the sector.
Dr. Femi Hanza, the Special Advisor to the Minister of Power, Works and Housing, also speaks on the issues around public-private partnership models and concessions in the infrastructure space.
There are specific legislations, right? That's why we have the RCRC, that's the Infrastructure Concession Regulation Agency. Now, the essence is there are processes that need to be followed, okay? So, like we said, people cannot just come and say, I will build this. So, there has to be various studies. On a road, for example, there will be traffic studies. There will be financial models to determine what will be the tariffs. And that's why I saw that there is a tolling policy that the ministry has put forward towards the parliamentarian. So the moment all those are fulfilled, the process of tolling roads and the rest is there. At the same time, those are new roads, but old roads, that's why we are trying to fix them. The moment all the roads are fixed, you can put in tolls so that you can have resources to maintain it and then but the RCRC, Bureau of Public Enterprise and the rest, they've existed for so long. And therefore, if we privatize electricity, like I said, so why are we not getting the private resources? It's because certain things has to be done right. There has to be rudimentary work, studies and everything done so that we don't make mistakes. And as such, that's what's going on right now. So right now we are engaging with people with various interests in terms of road infrastructure. And that's why, bringing in Sukuk, for example, 100 billion hasn't happened. That's private capital. It's people's money in order to build those roads. But they want the roads to be fixed. And by the time it's fixed, then you can toll it, and then you can start building the other roads.
Prince Dapo Adelegon, Chairman, Research and Advocacy Committee of IOD Nigeria, gives further insight on the essence of the roundtable and the issues around public-private sector partnership.
I think the fundamental is that government does not have the money to develop the necessary infrastructure in this country. And government should stop trying. Private capital is hovering all over the world, looking at opportunities in developing economies. Andrew Neville of FPW just shows the story of the new toll gate in Senegal, in Dakar. Probably one of the biggest PPP projects in West Africa. Nigeria has more international capital interest, but the government must provide the enabling. And one of the critical things is sanctity of contracts. Nobody will bring the kind of money we're looking for without guarantees that the goalposts will not be changed. Number two, government must play its role by doing the necessary community relation and enlightenment so that people can understand the benefits of PPP as a fast track for development, particularly of infrastructure like roads and rails. And therefore, once the buy-in of the people is sought by government, they will love it. If you put a rail structure anywhere, it is the fastest engineering mechanism for urban renewal, as well as rural to urban growth. So, if we have clear-cut contracts and they're enforceable, and we're not going to change the rules middle of the way, if government allows and open itself to international investment, and not try to do everything and say we don't have money. Yes, no government in the world does everything. But we make sure that the environment, and then do something about our brand. Our perception level is very low. There are worse countries like Nigeria, but they are spending a lot of money improving the brand and the perception internationally. If we do those three things, increase our brand perception globally, allow sanctity of contracts, and open up to foreign capital. And when foreign capital comes to the country to develop infrastructure, it also comes to competencies and transfer of technology. Those who built Dubai 15, 20 years ago were British and American investments. They've left. The Dubaians own the properties and the infrastructure. So we cannot deceive ourselves. If we need 15 trillion on a regular basis to fill an infrastructure gap and ensure that there's employment for our youths, and we don't turn our society into an unlivable environment, then government must wake up to the realities of the situation.
Nigeria, according to PricewaterhouseCoopers, will require an annual investment of 18 trillion naira to boost its infrastructure. The federal government at the moment does not have the capacity to raise such resources. It is therefore instructive to carry out robust reforms that will provide a cohesive framework for PPPs, concessions, and guarantees for contracts.